families, and it is part of the Action for Healthy Kids Wellness Wednesday webinar series. My name's Carol Muller, and I am the Regional Field Manager for Action for Healthy Kids in Colorado. So let's review some logistics before we get started. Once you're linked in, you should see a control panel, usually on the right side of your screen. You can use your telephone or your speakers and to listen to the presentation, but everybody will be muted just to make sure that we don't hear your dogs or kids barking in the background, and also to avoid static. There's a dialog box at the bottom of your control panel. You can type questions into that as we're going along, and I don't know that we will have time to answer them during the presentation, but we will try to get them all answered via email afterwards if we can't get to them while we're live. So this webinar is being recorded. Links to the recording and the handouts and the slides will be sent to you within 2 to 3 business days after the webinar. So first, I would just like to say a few words about Action for Healthy Kids and our work. We are a national nonprofit. We are moms, dads, teachers, students, school and community leaders, and school wellness experts who have come together to create healthier learning environments for our children. Our vision is that every child is healthy, active, and ready to learn, and our programming is designed to inspire health professionals and parents and communities really to see that every child is healthy, active, and ready to learn. And we really hope that the programming can lead to the healthy eating, increased physical activity, and healthier schools where all kids are able to thrive. So this webinar is part of our Action for Healthy Kids Wellness Wednesday webinar series, which has been hosted this school year on the second Wednesday of every month. And we've really created these to give school wellness champions kind of those how-to tips and strategies on a variety of different topics, which you can see on your screen. This is the last one in the series for this school year, but you can go back, and if you weren't able to be here live for them, you can go back and listen to them in our archived webinar section on our website and listen to them all at your convenience. So today's objectives are to really, that you come away understanding the benefits of walking and biking to school, and you know what types of programs are good for getting your students and families engaged, and also that you have some practical tips and strategies to get your team started. When you add a walk and bike to school program to other wellness initiatives that promote physical activity and good nutrition, your school is going to be well on its way to transforming into a place where every kid is healthy and ready to learn. Today we've got a couple of great presenters with us. We have Leslie Feuerborn, the Safe Routes to School Program Manager at the Colorado Department of Transportation. And we've also got Bevan Barber Campbell, a Colorado parent champion who's been advocating for bike and walk to school programs for several years. So first of all, I am going to introduce Leslie, who's going to kick us off as our first presenter. Leslie is the manager of the Colorado Safe Routes to School program through the Colorado Department of Transportation, and she manages the program and all the grant projects that are associated with that. Leslie has more than 30 years experience working in education, wellness, and injury prevention. And Colorado Safe Routes to School and the Department of Transportation have awarded over $20 million in grants since 2005 to encourage and enable Colorado schools and school districts and communities statewide to get more children walking and bicycling safely to and from school. Leslie has a bachelor's degree in physical education and a master's in exercise science from San Diego State University. So with that, go ahead and take it away, Leslie.
Great. Thanks so much, Carol, and thank you for having me on this call and presenting some information about trying to get more kids walking and biking to school. And I am going to give kind of more of a general overview of kind of how we approach walking and biking to school, really using the Safe Routes to School model. And then fortunately we have Bevan on the phone who's going to give a lot of the real practical, how do you actually do it, how do I help get kids and families involved. So first of all, I just wanted to do a really quick overview on what the 5 E's are for increasing the program and really getting people engaged. And so when we look at programs, we really try to get education, encouragement, enforcement, engineering, and also evaluation into that. And we also know that the more of those components that a program has, the more successful it will be and more engaging to families to get their kids walking and biking. So if we can go to the next slide, I want to start with education. And I really look at education as kind of both the skill building and safety training aspect and also some of the programs. So these are just some of the things that can be done in the school setting or even outside. So one of the ways to get kids to build their skills in terms of riding bicycles safely or learning what pedestrian behavior should be is doing education in PE classes. It gives them experience with it. They learn the rules of the road for both walking and biking, and it's a great way to get all kids involved with that and not just the kids whose parents teach them. Another one to increase skill building in kids is doing bike maintenance classes, and that's really helpful for especially the older elementary and middle school kids who can learn how to really take care of their bike and check their chains and fix their flats and that kind of thing. So we know that those kinds of programs are really good, like I said, for the older older elementary and middle school. We also see train the trainer programs. Oftentimes people will bring in an expert or agency to do their education programs, but the more we can do to train the people within our communities to do that education, the more sustainable that program becomes. So we really like to emphasize and encourage bringing in the experts, but learning from them so that you can do your own programs. And that might even include how to organize a bicycle rodeo. Those are great opportunities for kids to really learn the skills and practice the skills. They're simple to set up. There's lots of resources for really anybody to set up a bike rodeo and do that. Also, increasing some pedestrian education at that time too makes a big difference. Bike fleets is another thing that helps with sustainability of programs, and bike fleets are basically when a school or a school district or even a community buys bikes so that they can be used in the schools. Sometimes they're even set up so the kids can borrow those bikes during the week, but they're a great resource for all those kiddos who don't have access to bikes at work. There's also some programs that we look at that can really address some of the issues that parents have in terms of not feeling safe for their kids to walk and bike to school. And one of them is a walking school bus or a bike train. Their concepts are the same in that you kind of gather up the kids along the way to school. It can be an informal or very formalized process, but it's the whole idea of getting groups of people together to get safely to school and back home again. Family bike rodeos are another type of program. It teaches not only the kids but also the adults who maybe have forgotten how to ride their bikes or forgotten some of the rules of the road. After school bike club, a lot of schools will do that just so kids who have that higher interest really get some additional experience. Another program that has worked really well for those schools that a lot of parents are driving in saying it's too far for their kids to walk and bike is to set a remote drop-off place. So it's a quarter to half a mile from the school. You drop your child there and you walk in with them or meet other kids to do it. The bike library is what I mentioned earlier, where a school or a city or town may have bikes available for kids to check out and use during the school week as well as on the weekends. So next. So the next E is encouragement, and this is usually an area that people oftentimes start with because it's really the fun part. It's really doing things that give people the experience and the trial to try out walking and biking to school. It can help increase the popularity. It's an easy way to start the program. And it's things like Bike and Walk to School Day, which we have every year. Bike to School Day we just had last week. It's the first Monday in May, and Walk to School Day is the first Wednesday in October. So those are great days. They're national events. You can really get engaged and involved with that, get your school to host one and do a lot of things to get kids to walk and bike that day. You can have prizes, you can have food, you can have, a whole variety of things. And it's a really great way to show parents that the distance isn't very far for them to get their kiddos there, or they meet other parents who maybe lived by them, didn't realize that they also had an interest in it. But those are really just one-time events, and really what we want to do is encourage kids to be walking and biking on a more regular basis. So some schools and communities have done what are called Walking Wednesdays or T&T Tuesdays, which is tires and pennies. And it's just an incentive program where every time children walk or bike on those days, they may get a coupon to put into a drawing that occurs at the end of the year for some big prize, or some people have developed what's called a trip tracker program where they work with the community and kids earn money, quote unquote money, every time they walk or bike or use an alternative transportation mode, and are eligible for purchasing things within the community businesses that have participated in that program. So those are all different types of encouragement programs that can really get your families, your parents, your grandparents involved in increasing kids walking and biking. So next. So enforcement, just by the word itself, you probably automatically think police, but enforcement is really much broader than that. It's really getting your community to become more aware of the laws that protect pedestrians and bicyclists. It helps hopefully improve driver behavior around your schools, and it can include things like helping children know what the traffic rules are and how to follow them. It can be crossing guard programs, it can be police enforcement where they have more of a presence, or even they put in the speed signs to get people to realize how fast they're driving by the schools. So those are all types of enforcement programs, but enforcement can also look at your policies and how well do you enforce the policies at your school. So policies could be that you have a policy that kids are not allowed to walk and bike to school. So if you have that kind of policy at your school, you want to work to overturn that and look at ways to get rid of that. It could be doing more education around the rules of the road for both pedestrians and bicyclists, and or driver behavior, which is obviously a critical thing around schools and makes parents really nervous about letting their kids walk and bike to school. Okay, and next. So engineering is the fourth E, and the purpose of engineering is really to work on creating safer, more accessible settings for walking and biking. And it can include what we call infrastructure projects. The bottom right pictures, those pictures are the same location. That White House is the same house in both of those. And what this city did is they actually realized that kids walking along that road were probably a little bit in danger of those cars that are going a little too close, and most parents are going to say, I don't think so. So the city was able to get some funding, and they put in this walking path that led from the community area to the school. So that's certainly one way that we can look at it. It's engineering. Typically, we need to work with our town or city engineers, our traffic engineers, and or our county traffic and engineering folks. Could be bridge and road group, something like that, because they're the ones who will do the big projects like that, but oftentimes need the community to identify where they really want these changes to occur. Engineering is typically very large projects, but we can also look at smaller projects. So the pictures on the left are more the routes that this community has identified, so that parents and children can see, oh, I see that picture with the people walking, and there's a sign that has an arrow. So that shows me the safe route to my school? And that way your kids are assured of finding the best route for them to get to school. In the next picture, this is another infrastructure project, and it's a little bit hard to tell, but this is actually the same road. The kids on the picture on the left are not kids that most of us would feel comfortable that those were ours. And so this community up in the mountainous area of Colorado found the funding over actually a 10-year project that they worked on a number of different components to this, but they were able to add the sidewalk that you see on the right side of the right picture, and those kids in the background kind of walking. So engineering is really important and can really influence the way people behave around the areas that our kids are walking and biking. And then the final E is evaluation. And this is a really important one because oftentimes we get really excited about doing projects, but we kind of forget from the very beginning to think about what is it that we really want to change. We want to change how our kids walk and bike to school. We want to change the safety around it. We want to, do it so that more parents are involved. So what is it that we really want to change around our school? And how do we know that that's really what we need to change? What's the evidence or the data? It could be doing surveys and finding out how kids are currently walking and biking to school. It could be asking parents about what their barriers are to allowing their kids to walk and bike to school, or what kinds of things do they want to see changed to make it safer and easier for their kids to walk and bike. And then really the other thing we want to know is, do the things that we implement, do they have any change that occurs because of doing that? So are your efforts making a difference? So those are important things to really look at when we're doing a program, and things that we should be engaged in. So those 5 E's. And on the final slide, I just have, this is some research that was done at a national level looking at what elements are important when we want to look at a successful program. And while we're implementing the 5 E's, we also know that if we have an in-school leader or champion, it could be a principal, a parent, a teacher, that's really critical for the success of our program. We have to do activities that reinforce biking and walking, maybe some of those encouragement types of things. Really help seeing if you have a parent organization or a PTO, engaging in their support will make a difference in helping get that information out to the community. And then really looking at the policies, such as early dismissal of children who walk and bike, or looking if are there even adequate places for kids to walk and leave their bikes and bike helmets once they get to school. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Carol, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Wow, lots of great tips and ideas, and we really appreciate your time. And notice on the screen, these 4 resources that you see are ones that Leslie has really found to be useful in the communities that she works with, and we'll be sending these out in the follow-up email as well. Lots of great places to look for strategies. Next, let me introduce our next presenter. Bevan Barber Campbell is a bicycle advocate and bike and walk to school parent champion in Colorado. She's been developing and implementing safe routes to school programming in her children's elementary schools for 6 years, as well as advising other champions and developing educational programming for the cities that she's been in. As a parent champion, Bevan has pretty much tried everything from after-school bike clubs, walking school buses, and frequent biker and walker programs, to hosting major bike and walk to school day celebrations. And with the expertise that she's gained from her experience, she wrote a bike and walk to school resource and implementation guide for Fort Collins, which we'll also be sharing with you later. And she's also a safe cycling instructor in the schools. So welcome, Bevan.
Great. Thanks, Carol and Leslie. I'm really excited to be a part of this webinar and share with you all what I've really basically learned through lots of experimentation. Starting out with a little background, I knew when my kids started school that I wanted to be out there championing, biking, and walking to school. And when my kids did start kindergarten, I was fortunate to be in Fort Collins, which had a school district and a school that was making solid efforts to promote wellness. Biking and Walking to School program had been identified as a preferred wellness initiative. And my kids' school principal and wellness committee were really supportive of my interest in leading that effort at the school. So basically at Laurel, when I arrived there and said I wanted to do this, they said, go get connected with the wellness committee. So I did that and started promoting it underneath that umbrella. A real quick thing about the Laurel Wellness Program, that's my kids' school, Laurel Elementary. We had 3 main commitments. The first one was pick a better snack. I don't know if any of you are doing that. We basically did monthly, we would bring a new fruit or vegetable into the classroom to give kids a chance to try something maybe they hadn't had before. We also did an annual wellness fair, and with that we usually had a family bike rodeo. And then the Bike and Walk to School program was sort of our third pillar. We also did intermittently have after-school running clubs, and then we had an after-school bike club that I started and ran for 3 years, and one of our grandfathers of the school has kept it going for the 3 years after I left, so that's had some great sustainability. They can be a lot of work, though, so you have to be prepared for that. Supporting our wellness program financially was our annual fundraiser called Laps for Laurel. And this is something that might be happening nationally. In Fort Collins, at least, a group called the Healthy Kids Club, I think, was promoting this idea of having a fundraiser that was also active. It was the only fundraiser our school did. We actually had a pretty high free and reduced lunch, and we still would raise like $15,000 in pledges. The kids would go out and get pledges and commit to running as many laps as they could. So we didn't sell candy bars or wrapping paper. All our PTO did was Laps for Laurel. And part of the deal with Healthy Kids Club was that they would provide our printed T-shirts with our sponsors and the year and a new color every year. In exchange for that, the value of the T-shirts was about $2,500. The PTO had to commit to give that amount of money. The $2,500 had to be allocated from the total pledges raised. So we automatically had this great budget, and then $1,000 of that wellness budget was committed to Bike and Walk to School, to my program. So that helped give me great amount of money for, prizes and buying food and balloons and all kinds of things. So that was really useful. Next slide, please. So why is Bike and Walk to School program such a great wellness initiative? And, to me, it's a no-brainer. It's a great way to get kids active. I also think it's something that kids can really connect to and get excited about. Kids love bikes. They like being outside. They like the freedom and independence. They like the idea of biking with their friends and families. The other thing I really liked about it, which was a big part of my pitch to the school administration and teachers, is that it's a wellness initiative that happens before or after school. So it's not taking away from instructional time. It's not adding anything new to the teachers' plates. So that was a big part of our pitch. The other thing I really like about it is I think it is very inclusive, especially in the messaging. Some people's criticism was, oh, well, there's so few kids that really get to participate in this program because there's so many kids that have to drive, or they don't have control over this aspect of their life, or they're going to be on the bus no matter what. My response to that is there is ways to include all those kids. You can be very creative with your inclusivity, including families that are definitely driving, with the kids who are on the bus. We did a remote drop-off once for all of our busers. We had 150 kids walk to school from the middle school, which was about a half a mile away. But again, the main thing is I think every kid benefits from the messaging. You're giving them a message to carry with them for life, that active transportation is good for you, and it's something that, they may not be able to do it now, but maybe once they're in college or when they're adults, they will use active transportation. So everything on this slide is kind of a part of your selling pitch, whether it's to parents, teachers, or administration. There's lots of information out there on how good it is for kids. So next slide. And how to connect it to your school wellness program. Obviously, if you're on this phone call, you're probably going to put it under your wellness committee. I also had a subcommittee that was our Bike and Walk to School subcommittee, and that was good because I had kind of my team of people that helped me pull off the actual activities. And with that subcommittee, you might be seeking out your biking families. You just need to find out who those people are. They may be people that don't want to be on the wellness committee, but they want to help with this effort. And out of going to those biking families, you might find your champion. And that's another thing I'd add to this list of things to do, is ideally you want to find some kind of champion. Develop a budget, secure funding, build some partnerships with the child health advocates in your community. And then engagement, that's the million-dollar question. How do we get parents and kids to really want to engage with this programming? I think, being really inclusive, gather information and go out there and survey parents, ask them what their limitations are, ask them if they have any creative ideas. And, in that surveying, you can also be educating them or telling them about a remote park and walk. Take a two-generation approach. You're always trying to educate the kids and influence them, but also the parents. Maybe it's the parents that need bikes and not the kids to be able to bike to school. Have free coffee. I've always done that. And finally, it's just making it as easy and convenient for parents as possible, making it safe, talking to parents about some of their misconceptions maybe about safety, making it accessible and inclusive, making it rewarding. Kids like prizes. For parents, if it's social, they might be more interested in coming, and of course making it fun. Next slide, please. And Leslie's touched on a lot of these, but I just wanted to talk about some of my favorites and the ones I've found that have gone really well. I'm a huge fan of the remote park and walk. In Fort Collins, we have a lot of school choice and charter schools, so a lot of people don't go to their neighborhood school. So the remote park and walk is a great way to promote, that there is a benefit to walking even part of the way to school. You could have that every Wednesday, and then you could have a walking school bus from the remote park and walk. Family bike rodeos are great. The next three ones, family bike rodeos, bike field trips, and bike safety education. Some of those could be challenging to pull off if you don't have a safe routes program in your city. But if you have people that bike who can go to another city and get educated, you could have parents running these things as well. We've had some really neat bike field trips in Fort Collins, which are really exciting. The other thing I've really enjoyed doing is the bike drive and lottery. At Laurel, we had a really interesting population. We had, people who lived in the neighborhood who were professors and really into biking and had lots of bikes. And then we had a lot of low-income kids as well. So with the drive, we could bring in bikes from these families that had extra bikes. And then with the lottery, it was a simple form where a kid's family could fill out and say, I do need a bike. We put all those names in a hat and we're able to give away a bunch of bikes. So it's a pretty neat one. I know I'm not going to be able to go into real details about any of these, but you're very welcome to call me or email me to get the nitty-gritty on how to do any of these activities. So next slide. Oh, and I didn't mention, just going back a bit, you don't have to go back to the slide, but I did celebrate all the major bike and walk to school days, the one in the fall, the one in the spring, and then I also love celebrating winter bike to school day because I think it's good to keep safe routes to school programming going on during the winter. So that's it for me. And one of the other things I love about Bike and Walk to School program is it does build community and school spirit. And I will leave you with that and hand it back to Carol. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bevan. I love that photo. That's you there, I believe, in that photo, isn't it? And then also that photo you had you sent us at the beginning of you as a little girl. You obviously started off as a young age being a bike advocate. So we appreciate seeing you in different stages. I also want to point out, like with Leslie, Bevan has shared some resources with us, and these will also be in the follow-up. She shared the implementation resource guide that she created for Fort Collins, as well as a presentation for PTAs and PTOs that she used with Laurel. And so we're very happy to share those with everyone in the follow-up email as well. And that said, we are about out of time. And unfortunately, in these little mini webinars, we don't have a lot of time for questions. But if you did enter a question in, and we will be sure to email you an answer to the extent that we have one. And appreciate your time today. we would just want to make sure that you know that we have lots of great social media in Action for Healthy Kids. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest, Flickr, YouTube for lots of different health tips and physical activity games, recipes, volunteer opportunities, and of course lots of ideas for action. As I mentioned earlier, if you missed any of the webinars in our Wednesday series, you can find them online in our archived webinar section of our website, and also on YouTube, and hope that you'll take advantage of those. And with that, just another quick thanks to both Leslie and Bevan. Thanks so much for sharing all of your expertise, and I will send both of their contact information out in the follow-up email, as well as the resources and the slides. So that concludes our webinar today. We wish you the best of luck in implementing your Walk and Bike to School programs. Thanks for your time and have a great day.